Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 2 of Learn to Excel in Excel. This week is all about graphs. Graphs are one of the more important things that Excel has to offer. It's one of the more powerful things that Excel has to offer. When it comes to data, graphs are so much better than tables. Graphs let you see the data, they let you see how the data changes, they let you see how the data develops over time. Graphs are visual in nature, which, as humans, makes data a lot more easy to understand versus a table. So here we have some data that we're going to look at shortly, but it's on plants and how they grow with different amounts of light and water. Now, of course, we can sort the data into whatever way we want. Right now, we just have it sorted with plant ID number. So to get a graph, you're going to hit Insert, and then over here is all the graph information. Now, when choosing which graph to use, this is where it becomes a little tricky. There are scatter plots, there are line plots, there are bar graphs, there are pie charts. All of them are used to show different types of things. In this part 1, we're going to be looking at bar graphs. Bar graphs are used to compare different sets of data along the same axis. So if we want to compare, say, all the plants that had the same amount of water, or all the plants that had the same amount of light, a bar graph is what we could use to do that. Now, when it comes to making a graph, data organization is key. That is to say, knowing what kind of graph we need is dependent on what we're trying to show, but is also dependent on how our data is organized within our tables. So if we look here, what kind of data is this? Well, we have a plant ID number, we have how much light it got, how much water it got, and how much it grew. So is the plant ID number really relevant to what we're talking about? Maybe, but also maybe not, because the plant ID number is equivalent to saying how much light it got and how much water it got. So if we move down here, I made this table that has how much water it got, and how much light it got, and then how much it grew. Using this data table, we might be able to make a little bit better of a graph. Now, to know which sort of thing you want to do takes a little bit of experience. It takes a little bit of, just practice to know which or how to organize the data best. But for this example, this is going to be one of the better ways to organize our data. Okay, now when it comes to actually getting the graph into Excel, what you do is you're going to come over to the Insert tab, like I said before. You're going to select the type of graph you want, and for this case, we wanted a bar graph, and we're going to select the type of bar graph that we want. Now, as you can see in the background there's something that's coming up. We don't necessarily want what Excel is trying to assume our data is. So what you can do is you can select the data that you want, and Excel is usually pretty good at guessing the graph that you want. But for this example, I'm going to do it manually, which is to say we're going to insert, and it's just going to give us a blank graph. Now, when it gives us a blank graph like this, you have to right click and then hit Select Data. When you hit Select Data, it'll bring this part up where you can add your different data sets. So for this data set, we're going to name it 100. And then for our series, we're going to have it be all of these. Okay. And then we can add our next one, which will be named 125. And it will have this middle row. And then we can add one more, which will be this 150, and it'll be this bottom row. Okay. The last thing we have to do is change the names of the columns. And to do that, we hit edit, and then we're going to say equal these curly brackets 8, comma 10, comma 12. Close with the curly brackets and hit enter. And then we have our data sets and the names. Okay. So now we have this graph here. Every chart needs more information than Excel gives you by default. By default, it selects several of them, but we need more. Every single one needs axes titles, needs a chart title, and for something like a bar graph where you have multiple things going on, you also need a legend to tell people what the different things mean. Now, of course, you fill in the information as what fits the graph that you're trying to show, but also you need units in the axes. So for the vertical axis here, we would put growth in centimeters per week. And then for this horizontal axis, we would put hours of light the plants got per day. And then for these legends, we would have to include water in milliliters. Brings us to the end of part 1 of graphs. See you in the next part. Have an awesome day.